Good morning. This morning, now that I've had this little 570 Polaris for a few weeks and used it and abused it pretty good, I want to make sure all the fluids are good. The previous owner, it looks like he changed the oil and the filter on it before I got it, but I really don't know what he did with the gear boxes. And some of the grease fittings that it had weren't necessarily greased as well as they should have been, so I want to change the grease in the front and the rear end to make sure that's good, or the oil that is. And while I'm at it, I'm going to do a full oil change and then change the air filter while I'm at it. So here's your Polaris AGL, and that's for the rear end. Takes quite a bit of that. And this is the demand drive fluid for the front end, the front diff, because that's a little different. It's got some sort of clutches and stuff like that in there. And of course we've got our oil change kit, which has the oil filter and the oil. And I've also got a Polaris filter because I want the right stuff in it. So we're going to be using that. The first thing that I'm going to do, and these aren't terribly expensive, is your part number. I mean, I paid what I paid for this thing, you know, to save $3 on an air filter that may or may not be what it should be. It's not really worth it. So your oil fill is pretty obvious. You can pop the bed, you can see it here. That's your dipstick, and I believe the oil fill is up here. Got your oil filter, which is also pretty nice, although it looks like that's going to make a pretty hellacious mess when you take it off, so that ought to be interesting. The oil drain is down underneath right here, and that is a 6mm hex wrench, which we will take off in 1 minute once I go get a little bit of a light. Ooh, yikes. Came off with a snap. Now, I've warmed this up a little bit this morning. It's kind of chilly. We'll see. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Well, I'll pull the dipstick out. There's pretty good vacuum in there, which is nice because that means it's sealed from water intrusion. So that's pretty good. Yeah, that oil doesn't look too bad. It really doesn't. So we're going to let that drain a little bit, and then we're going to pull the filter. Alright, now that it's drained for a few minutes, put the plug back in, tighten it to 12 foot-pounds, which really isn't much. One good snirk maybe. Now we're going to move on to the oil filter. So here's your oil filter, and I have gotten in from the other side and tried to wedge a little Tupperware container I use for catching various fluids in there to try to catch anything that comes out. Now let's see. Ah, good, she's not overly tight. Let's see how much does come out. Oh yeah, that was a good idea. Otherwise that goes right into the belly pan. Of course, how I'm going to get that bucket out of there without just dumping it anyway, I'm not 100% sure. But, so that's removing the oil filter. Now we will attempt to install a new one. All right, new one is on. Now I'm going to get that bucket out from under there somehow, and then we will put the oil back in. So I've cleaned off the area around the oil filler. You can also use the dipstick if you want to add oil. Cleaned it off with a brush and some compressed air. Why get any more gunk into this thing than you need? Put the funnel on it and add 2 quarts of oil. In this instance, I'm using the recommended 5W50 because it basically matches the temperature ranges that I'll be running. And after that, should be able to fire it back up. Sure, all the lights go off. And they do. Sounds good. So that is a success. Fairly simple. That's your oil and filter change for the little Polaris 570. So we're also going to do the air filter today, which is a little easier if you pop the rear hatch. You just have to pull the cotter pin and the pin that's up here. So we'll see what this monster looks like. Alright, looks like you need a regular screwdriver. Ooh. Ugh. It was probably due. Yeah. Probably why it's important to have one of these. So, yeah, so that's due. What I'm going to look at here is, okay, I'm going to go get a little vacuum cleaner and suck all that out. Clean that up real good, and then we're just going to put the new one on. Okay, we got that all cleaned out, and I'll give a little credit. That was either the original muffler or the original air filter, or it was at least changed with a proper Polaris part, so that was the correct air filter for it. This one seems to be slightly oversized, and there's no ridge around the tube for it to bite on, which is a little annoying. I think instead of the gasket grease that I use there, I may clean everything off and try a little bit of spray glue to make sure that's going to stay, because it's just popping off as I tighten this, so that's interesting. Stay tuned. Alright, so we cleaned everything up really good. Got a little bit of spray glue on there. And I don't think she's gonna move now. I'm not too enthused about that not having a lip for the clamp to grab on, so that's kind of interesting. But I don't think she's coming off now. There we go. And the cover has two hooks on it, which need to go into those two little retainers down there to make sure that it seals properly. Tipped. There she goes. And those aren't very snug, so I'm gonna snug these up a little bit. All right, that's a little better. Now we're done with the air cleaner. And now we're going to move on to the front end and then the rear end, which aren't really that difficult, but may be more interesting because I'm not sure if these have ever been done. So the front differential on my 570's got two plugs. One here, that's your fill plug. And then one underneath, which actually has a nice clearance hole cut in the bracket. Right here, which is your drain plug. Both appear to be 8mm hexes, a little bit bigger than the oil drain. So now we're going to attempt to break this loose. I hate to think that this is probably factory tight. Oh, okay. Not bad. Always do your fill plug first, because if you do your drain plug and the fill plug won't open, it's kind of hard to fill it. And get, just in case this actually has fluid in it, we're going to get a little pan under there. I truly don't expect it to be full, but one never knows. Okay. Looks to be a nice little O-ring seal on that, which just seems to be in pretty good shape. Alright. Well, we're on a nice level surface and nothing is coming out. So either this thing is perfectly full or not full enough. So we're going to set this fill plug aside and go drain it. Okay. Here she goes. Alright, it had some fluid in it, but it's pretty brown. Seems to be a magnet on top of the plug. A little fuzz on it, but not bad. So, just like with the oil, we're going to let that drain for a little while, and we'll put the plug back in and fill it back up. Alright, now that that's had a little chance to drain, plug back in. And move up to fill. So the fill process on these is fairly straightforward. You're supposed to put 9.3 ounces or 275 milliliters of fluid in it. But the way that also works is you fill it until it starts dripping out of this fill port, and then you're done. And if you can see that, this fluid is almost perfectly clear, so I'm betting that's gunk in there that came out had never been changed. So I'm glad I did this. And it's dripping. Perfect. All right, just a little drip. And that's the front fluid change. The nice thing is you buy a quart of this stuff and you got enough to do 2, if not 3 changes, so you can do, it'll last you for a couple of years. So now we're gonna move on to the rear. All right, similarly on the rear, you have your fill and level hole, and up underneath you've got the drain. Again, both of which appear to be 8 mil X keys. So we're gonna get ready and try to crack these loose. Oh my. Whoo boy. Let's see if I can. Oh boy. Whew. And that is why you always do your fill first. Because, woo, that was factory tight. This is going to be another beauty, I'm sure. Okay, well, the level looks actually pretty good. It's right about up to the line, so there's still oil in it. Everything else looks nice and clean. So we're going to move underneath and drain her out. There she goes. Ooh, and she's nice and black. But at least there was some oil in it. Now we're gonna let that drain. All right, now that that's drained, get the plug back in. And move on to fill. All right, and much like the front end, you just It's 41 ounces or 1,200 milliliters of this stuff. Ooh, it's purple. So that could take a little while. But you just fill it until it comes out the threads, comes out the fill hole. Put your plug in, and you are done. All right, there it is. Now, screw the plug back in. Finished. And that was a full fluid change on a Polaris 570. So, I appreciate you watching. I will put links to all of the service products that I use in my Amazon affiliates page. So if you're interested in purchasing any of the products we use to maintain this bike today, please check that out over there. Hope everyone has a wonderful new year. And I will be talking to you all later. Take care.